Furlong Lane, which is now called Wellfield Road, it was number 27, and it was called Avonlea in those days.
And you can remember, can't you? So tell me about what you can remember about the day that war broke out.
I can remember the grocer coming round and bringing the groceries for us. He also brought green groceries, and I think he had a little motor vehicle that he brought veggies and things around on. And I can remember him bringing blood oranges and said he won't be having any more of those for a long time. That's really, well, I can remember playing in the garden that day when he came and seeing him pull up. But I can't remember anything else about that day.
Yeah. But you did have people, during the war, you had people billeted with you, didn't you? So could you tell me about that?
Yes, we had, not quite sure of the order, but we had 2 evacuee teachers who stayed with us, but not for very long. And then they went back. They came from West Bromwich. We had airmen who, again, were never with us very long. They'd come, I suppose, when they were on their courses and things at Fradley. And they went, and we had WAFs. We had some American Air Force people. And we had, at the end of that, we had a married couple, and that didn't go down very well because there wasn't really room in the house for 2 families. But yeah.
Were there some stipulations about what you had to have if you had a married couple?
Well, they had to have 2 rooms, a bedroom and a living room, and full use of the kitchen and bathroom. And I think that was the problem.
Yeah.
It's a bit quiet, but I'll just move the microphone a little bit. Sorry, I'll try not to put this right up your nose, but it's... Don't be afraid of it. I know it's a silly thing to say.
Yeah. You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about the WAFs? How did you get on with the airmen and the WAFs?
Oh, great. I loved it when I was a child, because they played with me. One of the WAFs taught me to knit, and they used to take me out for walks and all sorts of things. It was fun having them. I suppose we didn't see anything more than that. But I can remember waking them up on Christmas Eve. I'd been put to bed and they'd been to the party up at the camp. I suppose it was late when they came in. They used to have transport to bring them home. And I thought it was time Father Christmas had been. So I went and woke them up. And I got into trouble and put back to bed. But they were great. They were part of the family while they were with us.
Yeah. So can we just stop for a minute? You know when you're talking...
Okay.
So tell us about having an air raid shelter at the back of your house.
Yes, it was built in the sand pit. And the sand pit was there because they'd used the sand for the houses when they built all the houses. Ian and I used to play in there. We used to build our sand castles and all sorts of things. And I think the depth of it was decided to be a good, safe place for an air raid shelter. So the dads got together with two elderly families. One elderly family, but 2 elderly families when they built the air raid shelter. So I don't know what they did, but they all used it, and they got everything together. They got concrete and bedsteads and tar and all sorts of things, and built a fully reinforced air raid shelter with seats and a toilet, and I think it was an Elson-style toilet, but it was there, and big strong place, flat roof on it, and covered it up. It was a very good air raid shelter, and the men, the dads built it, and we helped, I think.
Can you tell us who the neighbours were and who the men were?
Yes, there was
Just sorry, can I just delay you a second? I just need to get my microphone out to shut.
There was Mr. Walker.
Okay, sorry, can you just start that again for
There
me?
was Mr. Walker, I think he was Jack Walker, who lived in the first of the 6 houses. And then there was Ernie Owen from the next one. That's Jennifer Bismore's father. And then there was Walter Kirkland. And then our family. And then there were the Prices, and I can't remember, I think it was a Mr. Brown that lived in the last one. But they weren't there very long, that I can remember. And they all got together and built this air raid shelter. And I think the children helped. You see there. It was quite a thing. We didn't really go in it very often. I think 2 or 3 times I can remember going in it. But it was a bit of an overkill, that one.
What? Just tell me what the bedsteads were for.
To reinforce the concrete. They were metal bed frames, big struts of them. Yes.
And tell me the story about you and Ian Kirkland playing somewhere where you weren't supposed to play.
Oh, we got into the air raid shelter when it was being built, and there was a layer of tar. It was, I suppose, done with tar for waterproofing it. And we got in the tar and got our feet and our shoes and everything covered in tar and got into such trouble. That was our playground before they built us an air raid shelter.
Can you remember much about rationing?
Yes, quite a lot.
Can you tell us about rationing?
Well, your rations, you got them once a week usually, because you couldn't, the amounts were small, so you didn't get very much. But we had points for things that were a little bit special that you got in cans or things like that. And everything virtually was rationed apart from bread and potatoes. And if you kept chickens or pigs or anything like that, you lost some of your ration. I know half the pig was supposed to go to the ministry, and you either got chicken food, I think, or eggs. We were never hungry. We ate a lot of things that we wouldn't think about eating now. Like tripe and offal and I don't really know, but things that we don't sort of get normally now. A rabbit was a treat, and people don't go out in the fields and get a rabbit now, do they?
No.
But you always had to think about it, and you never got. Children wouldn't have dreamt of taking anything. You couldn't sort of help yourself to a biscuit if there were any, or something like that. They were special, and you got given one. Yeah.
And could you just explain, you did have some chickens, didn't you? Could you just explain about that and where they were?
We had a lot of chickens. The eggs used to go off to market from them. The chickens were in the pony field, which is where Poppy Gardens is now. And Father used to feed them, take the eggs off. Yeah.
And what was the pony field?
It was a field. I think it was called that because the butcher kept his pony in there, I think was the story that I was told. And I seem to remember there was a white pony at one time. So that was probably the one. And it was a shortcut between the road. Everyone used to use it as a shortcut to get to the A38.
Going to move on to your mother and what your mother did during the war, which is WVS, isn't it, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, can you describe to us, as imagining that we don't know anything about it, what?
I can remember going with her to the Ormes house, in Post Office Road, and the buildings there, the stables or garages along there. We used to sit up in the top room listening for the telephone. Apparently it was a warning system, and the ladies in the village used to man this system on a regular basis. I don't know whether they ever got any exciting messages from it. Yeah.
And that was you and your mother?
I used to go with my mother, and there'd be maybe one or two other people there. Yes.
Difficult for us now to imagine what it would be like in the blackout. So, can you kind of paint a picture of it for us?
Well, you didn't really go out very much at night. You couldn't have any light. Wardens used to go around and make sure you hadn't got any light showing from the house when it was dark. No street lights or anything like that. I think once it was dark at night, people stayed in the house, and that was it. Father had a motorbike and he had a hooded headlight on it, and then afterwards we had a car, and that had hoods on the headlights so that no light went upwards. But it was dark. Yes.
And what means did you have of making sure that your house was not emitting light?
The warden that came round, he made jolly well sure and fine you or you'd have a fine if you had any lights, and there'd be trouble.
So
You had blackout curtains were the main thing. All the curtains were lined with black material. Wasn't as much light anyway as there is now. Lights were much smaller, I think.
And tell me about the sticky tape.
Oh, that they put on the windows. Yes, they put sticky tape to stop the glass shattering or going a long way. And to start with, it was all put on the wrong side of the windows, because when there's an explosion, it needs a lot of oxygen, and so it sucked the glass out. All the tape was on the wrong side of the window. Instead of keeping the glass in place, it let it come out.
So were you supplied with you were presumably supplied with sticky tape, were you? Were you supplied with other things?
I don't know. I remember the rolls of sticky tape that we put on the windows, but we had a stirrup pump and a sandbag. And I don't know what we'd have done with them if there had been a bomb. They wouldn't have gone very far. But yeah, we had the sandbag sat outside the front of the house all during the war till it just rotted away.
What about going to school? Can you tell me about going to school?
Yes, I didn't go to the village school. I went to St Christopher's, which when I started was held in was Erne Lodge, but I think it's the White House now, isn't it, on Main Street? And we were there for a few years, and then we moved to the vicarage and had, I think it was 2 rooms there. The school eventually moved to the alley by Dickinson's, and it was there until the early 60s. But there were only about a dozen or so of us there when I started, and then we went up to quite a lot of people eventually.
Is there anything else about it?
I don't know, I can remember the children, throwing sods of soil over the hedge when we were playing at the vicarage, when they came out of the other school. But it was good. I enjoyed school when I was small.
Why would they have been doing that?
Well, they thought we were posh or something, and they were throwing this stuff over at us. It was quite funny, really. A little battle going on.
And another thing that I can remember is when you were talking about shops, you talked shop where you could get kali and where it was, and the fact that you could get kali and other things like that from it.
Oh, it was in Post Office Road, the cottage, just next to Orms, along there. And she used to have stuff called Lingfo Fizz, which was horrible. It was red or yellow and fizzed, and your fingers got funny colours. And some kali occasionally. That was a treat. But the children all used to go there and get 2 pennyworth or whatever it was.
What do you think are the really strong memories about that time that you have? Or the strongest memories?
Don't know.
I mean, there might not be.
That was just we were only little children. It was just our life. I used to spend quite a lot of time at Swinfields Farm. My parents were friendly there, and that was quite fun. I liked being there. I liked the chickens and when they were hatching and all that sort of thing, playing there. And the old lady used to look after me, and that was great.
And how do you feel about telling us the story of the Jerrys?
You don't really want to know.
You don't want to?
No, you don't want to know.
Well, I certainly do.
And I'm fascinated now, because I don't know what the story is.
Well, when the war started, there was lots of talk about the Jerrys invading us. And in my childhood mind, I'd got a picture of all these soldiers running up from the river with the guns and all the rest of it, and we were told we weren't to open any doors, or everything had to be locked and all the rest of it. And I also knew that the lady that used to look after me, Mrs. Swinfield's mother, Mrs. Booth, used to say, "I'm just going to go and empty the Jerrys. You stay down here." And she used to leave me by the fire and go off and do her jobs. And I used to hear the loo flush. And I connected these Jerrys and loos and loos flushing and all the rest of it. And I thought, if I flushed the loo, then these soldiers were going to somehow get out. So I used to leave all the doors open and run like mad myself. And I was sure that's where they were coming from. It was quite frightening. But it was all in my mind.
I'm not going to come. That's good.
Were you frightened? Were people? Can you remember being frightened during the war about the fact that there was a war?
Yes, in some ways frightened. When we heard the aeroplanes going out, and you heard about people being killed, and our next door neighbours, the Prices, their son was in a ship and he didn't ever come back. And I know there was a lot of upset, and my father spent a lot of time with them, talking to them, trying to help them. But yes, I think we were frightened. We didn't really know anything else, so you didn't know you were frightened, I suppose. But yeah, so it must have been frightening. But I think everyone sort of tried to make it as normal as they could for the children and just get on with it. Certainly, they didn't watch us or anything all the time. We went off and played and just got on with it. And I did once, I suppose I'd be about 7 or 8 at the time, take myself for a ride on my bike. I had a little friend who lived at Roddage Farm. They were evacuated there from Birmingham, I think. And he'd got a Meccano set and a train set. And that's what I would have liked. That was absolutely great. And so I was a bit fed up this Saturday morning, and Mrs. Price was looking after me. But I got my bike out and I rode up the A38 to Roddage. I didn't really think anything about it. And my parents were coming home from Lichfield in the other direction and saw me, and there was a convoy. And apparently the convoy was passing me when they saw me, and it was a bit frightening, but I can remember it. No, we were very much allowed to do as we liked, though. I wasn't supposed to go to Fradley to Roddage on my bike.
Now that we're a bit relaxed, and could you just explain to me again about the building of the air raid shelter, and mention Ian Kirkland? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Ian was just a year younger than me, and we lived until we both left home. I think we lived next door to one another, so we played together a lot. And yes, his father was a carpenter, and so that they all worked together on this air raid shelter. But I had a lot of fun with Ian as a child. Yeah.
And if leaving them on there, if you could just tell us who were in. We'll put these.
Yeah.
I could do with my glasses actually for that.
I mean, just the ones you know. Really, because we'll be seeing you and we'll be seeing Ian.
Yes.
If it's you or Ian or your mother or either of your parents or his parents, that would register.
Ian's mother.
Ah.
This one's got, I think that one's Ernie Owen, my father, Ian, Mrs. Kirkland, and I think this must have been Walter Kirkland there. But he's got his back to us, hasn't he? Yeah. All leaning on the shovels, and the lady's working.
What about that?
Oh, well, that was all part of building it, wasn't it? Having a ride. Again, that's Mrs. Kirkland with us there. Two rather grim-looking children.
And just because nobody will know who are the children in the wheelbarrow.
Yes, well, this is Ian, and that is me sitting there.
Just tell me who that is.
Well, that's again Mrs. Kirkland and me. This one is... Oh, see, these are the houses down the far end of Wellfield Road. They'd just been built when this all started. And that's my father. And that's again Mrs. Kirkland. I think my mother... Well, she must have taken the pictures, I think, because my father's on them. And those were the men, weren't they? Not sure about that one. We've got my father, and I think that might have been Mr. Wolframan. I'm not sure about that. On the end there. No, I hadn't thought about that before, but it looks like him.
But they're the men who...
They're the men that built the air raid shelter, yes. Mm. And that one, again, that's the same men. Again.
Good. Do you think there's anything we've missed out? Anything we've missed?
I don't really know. No. We didn't go out of the village a lot normally. And if you went by train. I think there were about 3 buses a day to Lichfield. But I can remember going on the train to Lichfield, and I can remember going on the train to Burton. But, that was more exciting than buses. I like the buses.
So, 3.
Yeah. There was a little fire station by the George and Dragon. I expect you know about it. And I know Ian's got some nice pictures of that, very nice ones. But it was a self-contained community, I think. People made their own entertainment and that sort of thing. There were quite a lot of whist drives and dances, that sort of thing, went on in the village hall. I can't remember.
Right, that's all right.
You keep thinking of things.
Yeah.
And,
Well, we'll just stop for a bit, and then if you think of it.
and for children in the village, we'd got brownies and guides and scouts and cubs, and I think they had GFS at the Methodist church there. It was a great day, the day you could go to Brownies or something like that, and it was something to do. But there wasn't a great deal of other things to do in the village. There were little excitements like parties at the RAF camp for the children. I don't know whether there were children in the village or the children that were connected with people that did things at the camp. But that was fun going there. They were the only real parties for children I can remember when I was small.
Can you remember, you said you remember the war starting and somebody coming and saying you won't see any blood oranges for a while.
Yes.
Can you remember it ending?
Yes, I can remember it ending. I can remember VE Day was the first one, wasn't it? But I can't remember an awful lot about it. I can remember it happening, and I can remember my parents and my aunt, who was, I've probably not told you about her, living with us, going over to some relation that my aunt had. I think it was her brother-in-law in West Bromwich, because there were sort of big celebrations going on there. But I can't remember any celebrations in the village here. There may have been, but I can't remember. But my aunt was living with us because there was an explosion at Hanbury, the Fold explosion, and her husband was killed in that. He was in the fields, and nobody ever found another sign of him. And my father brought her back. So I think he was one of the first people that got into the area, because he worked for Roads and Bridges, County Council Roads and Bridges, and had to go in and assess how to get things moving. And he was able to go in and bring her back over to Allrowes, and she lived there for the rest of her life. She lived in the village. But that was wartime, wasn't it? And then I remember VJ Day, but I wasn't in Allrowes at the time. I was staying with my grandma on the northeast coast. And I can remember the street parties there and everybody going wild, because I think they were all very involved in the war, much more than we were here.
Did you hear the explosion at Fold?
Yes, yes.
Can you tell us about that, as though we didn't know anything about it?
Well, I don't think we knew anything about it at the time when it happened. There was just a noise that everybody heard. I can remember where I was. I was in the vicarage where we had our school, and there was this big noise, and then I heard all about it when I got home, and Auntie was there, and Auntie was coming. I think my father had come back and went back for her. Yes, that was terrible.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten that it was at wartime.
Well, I think it must have been wartime, otherwise she wouldn't have been living with us.
No.
And they wouldn't have taken her over to West Bromwich.
And there were Italian prisoners of war as well as local people working there, weren't there?
Yes, I think so, yes.
Yeah, there's a memorial to them.
Yeah. Yes. We went to that. I think it was the 50th anniversary of it. We were invited to.